let's dive into this idea of Chat GPT, and I think we should start with just what it is.
Yeah,
and then,
we've already talked about, we briefly talked about how it's literally going to change everything.
Yeah.
Or facilitate changing everything. And so what is it?
Yeah. Well, Charlie, why don't you start? Give your thoughts on or at least your use of it, and I'll give more of the history. How does that sound?
Yeah, well, so I guess it's important to call out that it's generative AI.
Yeah.
And what that means is that it can generate new content based off of like data that's in it. And it goes out and scrubs certain areas of the internet and pulls in information, and then it can use that information to give answers, write stories, code, whatever it is that you need it to do. Because it speaks natural language, but it also speaks programming languages too.
Yeah.
And so that's unique. There are other people trying this. Microsoft has had a couple of iterations so far. Google's had a couple of iterations so far.
Google's is Bard. Is it BARD?
The new one is Bard. They've had different names. I think so. The big box tech companies seem to be rebranding every time because they're getting a lot more attention on theirs, and the trolls are coming at them.
Yeah.
And their bots have been bigoted within a day.
Yeah.
And I think OpenAI seems to have skirted under the radar enough to where the trolls kind of stay away, but it's also moderated. And that's important in this case to differentiate that this is a moderated generative AI because the moderation is like you can't ask it. Well, you can ask it, as it turns out, and I'll let you get to this later, but you can't ask it to tell you how to create a Molotov cocktail, and it'll tell you. It'll just say, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
You can't tell it something's wrong and it stay wrong. It'll try to learn with you as you tell it things, but then eventually it'll come back to the I don't even know what you call it, the main source, and just be like, oh no, they're full of crap.
The framework.
Yeah, and so you mentioned GPT is generative pre-trained transformers, and that's and what makes GPT-3 so powerful is we've talked about this before. What is machine learning on here? Machine learning falls into 3 buckets: unsupervised, supervised, and reinforcement learning. In the past, all things text-based have been unsupervised, which means you don't know a real answer to it, but based on this bag of words, I'm going to just come up with something, and it comes up with some random thing. Where GPT-3 has really been a game changer is that it's using transformers in a supervised way. In other words, it's training based on a result that they feel was correct, and then it continues to evolve and iterate, and that's where reinforcement learning comes in, where it says, okay, I did this, is that good? If not, I refine it some more. So every time you get an answer, it's technically going through, I think, 96 different transformers, which means iterations to get to the best answer that it can, and it's happening in milliseconds for you. But all of that to be said, GPT was really, I think the first time it was announced was 2018. That was GPT, and now we're up to GPT-3, which of course was, which is Chat GPT, which came out just in November of last year.
And it's funny you mentioned 2018 because Forbes wrote an article in 2018 saying, "Did a robot write this?" And
really?
The Forbes article basically was saying that at that stage in 2018, at the early adoption of it, it was freeing up 20% of journalists' time.
Wow.
So at that point, and then a girl called Nina Schlick predicted at that point in 2018, by 2025, 90% of all content will be created by AI by 2025.
And we're kind of on pace for that, aren't we?
We're
I believe
2023, and
it's going to be exponential at this point.
It's that J curve that's just taking off.
Absolutely.